name's Bond. James Bond.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Bond vs. Godzilla, the podcast that compares and contrasts two of the longest-running film series in cinema history. My name is Cruz Moore, and I will be your resident Godzilla expert on this show. Joining me on this cinematic journey for however long it lasts are three of my very good friends who each have their own history and experience with both film franchises. Bond expert Jacob Roberts.
Hi, I'm Jacob Roberts, and I'm a piñata on a stick.
Audio engineer Willie Crook.
Hi, I'm the one providing the room today.
And digital artist Chas Lemons.
Hi, I'm Charles Lemons, and this room is very nice and a nice change of scenery.
On today's episode, we'll be tackling the fifth installments in the ever-growing dual film franchises, You Only Live Twice from 1967, and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster from 1964. So without further ado, Jake, give us a rundown on Bond's first journey to the land of the rising sun.
You only live twice. Once when you are born, and once when you look death in the face. The fifth James Bond adventure, You Only Live Twice, based on Ian Fleming's 11th James Bond novel, deals with two prominent topics of 1967, the space race and Japan's economic ascendance. The Soviets had been leading the space race all throughout the Cold War, and America was still a step behind. Earlier that year, America's Apollo 1 met with disaster when the shuttle caught fire during a launch pad test, killing all three members of the crew. And although America and the USSR signed a treaty prohibiting weapons of mass destruction being deployed from space, the West feared that the Soviet Union would conquer space and, by extension, the Earth itself. Of course, America would eventually win the ultimate prize of placing the first man on the moon 2 years later. Meanwhile, Japan was well on its way to becoming the world's second largest economy, further manufacturing unease and tension in the West. It is these fears that the evil Spectre and Eon Productions play upon to create their thrilling Eastern adventure. Producers decided to replace much of the Bond family that had worked on the previous four films with a brand new team of all-star heavy hitters, including cinematographer Freddie Young, known for his work on Lawrence of Arabia, and Roald Dahl, author of celebrated children's fantasies Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach.
As always, you have an amazing introduction for all these films, Jake.
No, thank you.
But I want to ask, because I recently did some research on the film myself, and it feels like as much backstory as there is to the Soviet space race and all that backstory, this also came from supposedly Ian Fleming just chilling in Japan and going, I kind of want to do a travelogue / Bond book about this place.
Yeah, Ian Fleming, You Only Live Twice, the original book, was born from Ian Fleming's personal experiences in Japan. He went out, in preparation for the book, he went to Japan and fell in love with the land. And much of You Only Live Twice is original plot, which bears some similarity, but not a lot with the movie, mainly because we weren't in outer space yet when the original book was written. But a lot of Ian Fleming's original experiences in Japan found their way into the pages very lovingly, and that, by extension, ended up in the movie.
Yeah, because the entirety of it, as exciting and wonderful as it is, it does very much feel like Bond is just kind of on vacation. And these things just so happen to him as he's kind of just enjoying the scenery.
As the case with a lot of Bond films, the exotic location kind of becomes a character in and of itself. I feel that You Only Live Twice is a prime example of that, where it's not a globe-trotting adventure. It takes place purely within one country and one civilization and allows that society and that culture to shine in ways that sometimes it doesn't always in other Bond films.
And I think that's very much why this one's my favorite so far, because I guess the bias of loving Japan and Japanese culture.
Yeah, this one was definitely one of the better ones in my opinion. Just it's interesting to kind of see like kind of the both side, like you don't really see like the impoverished side of Japan, but you see like the working side, like you see a shipyard, and then you see what like one of the higher ups in the government who basically has his own private train which looks like probably what some expensive airliner in the 50s would have looked like.
You see the economic prosperity of Japan
exactly
from the 60s.
As you guys said, it was fun seeing Bond just like secretly doing this stuff, not like pretending to be dead. Like that was a whole fun little thing.
Well, what was the main purpose, Jake, for him supposedly being dead, other than just throwing off Spectre's scent? Because we kind of already know he's going to be straight back on the.
Yeah,
on the
I know
horse.
that's something to poke fun of at this movie because obviously the whole Bond is dead fake out thing is for the benefit of the audience more than anything in the narrative. And Will and I, on the drive back after the theater, we had a pretty lengthy debate about how much of faking Bond's death was necessary. What was the whole point of the girl and the fake gunman and shooting him in the wall and having the police that were obviously in on it come in and check the body and confirm he's dead. Like, how much of that was really necessary when they could have just ran the ad in the paper? I mean, the funeral, okay, yeah, it was a way to get Bond onto the sub discreetly, sure, but there all those theatrics at the beginning to pretend Bond is dead. And like you said, it's not going to fake the audience. Like, oh my gosh, it's when the first 2 minutes of the film and Bond is dead. Ooh, what's going to happen now? Yeah, it's not going to fool anybody.
And yet it's done just as well, if not better, in Skyfall.
Skyfall tackles a very similar plot line. Much like all the Craig films, that the way they did it there is more grounded. And I think I like the way Skyfall did it, where Bond's death wasn't programmed by MI6.
It was his mortality that played into it.
Yeah.
So, Jake, can you give me some backstory as to why the man who brought you Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Fantastic Mr. Fox brings you... What's the name of this movie? You Only Live Twice.
As far as the hiring of Roald Dahl, as far as I know, there's no grandiose reason for it, aside from the fact that they hired him to do the screenplay. They wanted to bring in a new team, because pretty much the same team together created the first 4 films. They brought in pretty much Nick Fury bringing in the Avengers-style A-team for the creation of this film, and Roald Dahl was chosen for the screenplay. You Only Live Twice, between the film and the book, pretty much the only thing that really has in common is the Japanese location and shares some characters, but they've been greatly reworked. So as far as an adaptation, You Only Live Twice is, for the most part, its own unique stories. So you can thank Roald Dahl for, coming up with all these crazy ideas alongside the producers.
So a lot of people have commended another film series that I love very much, which is the Harry Potter series, for showing the natural progression of aging and their main actors. So I'm starting to feel like at this point, Sean Connery is very much like Daniel Radcliffe, where I'm kind of watching him grow up in these films.
That's something you're going to see with pretty much every one of the Bonds that are in the role for a long time. Like, heck, we're seeing it right now with Daniel Craig. Same could definitely be said of Sean Connery, who, at this stage is a global megastar who can't step out 2 feet without being hounded by the press. And it was actually during the production of You Only Live Twice that Sean Connery announced publicly that he would be leaving the role. He and Cubby Broccoli, the producer, weren't able to come into terms for a contract agreement. So Connery said, okay, that's it. I'm walking. I'm not going to be James Bond after this. With Broccoli then, publicly saying that, assuring people that the Bond franchise will go on. It just won't go on with Sean. But I think at this point, the success of the film franchise had gotten as powerful as it is. I'm sure the producers felt confident that the success of the franchise was possibly greater than even Sean himself.
Which is surprising because technically, like, he is James Bond, so it's like, how do you continue that
Oh,
on?
especially
you know?
with the advertising. If you look at the advertising for the first 5 movies, the one tagline they always love to come back to is Sean Connery is James Bond. And so whatever the producers thought, the idea of replacing Sean at all was going to naturally be a risk, no matter what direction they tried to take with it.
So the poster for the next movie is just Sean Connery is not James Bond.
Sean Connery was James Bond.
But due to contractual obligations, he is no longer.
So naturally, this movie has a very strong connection to the Godzilla franchise that, besides the Japanese location, that proved to be rather fortuitous with the 2 films that we watched with each other, and that they share an actress. The 2 actresses, Akiko Wakabayashi and Mia Hama, were borrowed from Toho Productions in order to take part in this movie. And then, like I said, Akiko Wakabayashi is in Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, and we've already seen Mia Hama in King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Yeah, which at the time I tried to like stump you with which actress was which, and it's like, oh wait a minute, they're in both of these films, so it's completely pointless.
Oh,
But I was quite happy because as we'll later get to with Ghidorah, I can't stand Akiko in that film because she really has nothing to do other than be a monotone possessed princess from Venus, Mars. I can't.
Yeah.
But in this film,
Akiko's
she's-
great in
yeah,
this film.
she-
She's
she's
freaking
one more-
fantastic, which is funny because it almost wasn't the case. Originally, Akiko and Mia were cast as opposite parts to what they ultimately ended up with.
so opposite roles.
Yeah. Neither spoke English, and so they were both flown out to London to be taught English for the movie. Akiko picked it up well enough to act, but Mia struggled, and Mia's part, which was originally going to be Aki, had a lot more lines than the later girl has. Since she wasn't working out, the producers sought to replace her. However, after receiving the news from the director Lewis Gilbert, I believe it was, Mia threatened to kill herself.
I
if
did
she was
not hear about that.
Yeah, rightfully concerned, the producers instead opted to have the girls switch their roles so that Mia would have fewer lines. Even still, Mia did end up being overdubbed by Nikki Vanderzil, which means that we have heard Nikki's voice so far in all 5 films we have seen.
And this film continues in the vein of Akiko being a great Bond girl that Bond actually has chemistry with, and let's kill her off.
Yeah, no, that's easily my number 1 biggest complaint about this movie is it didn't need to have 2 Bond girls. There was really no reason for there to be 2 separate characters other than to have 2 separate models that you can use for promotion.
Not to mention killing them off by just dropping some poison from a
Dropping some
string,
poison.
which is a cool method of killing someone, but it's like we literally have this moment where we can just like pause and breathe in this film, and they're just like sleeping, and then she's gone, and then Bond just completely forgets about her in the next scene, and it's like, chemistry, what's that?
It's Aki is definitely the better character in the movie, and when you get to Mia Hama's character, her character's name isn't ever even mentioned on screen.
That's a good point. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's nothing against the 2 actresses, especially after what Mia went through, but there was really no reason to have 2 separate girls in the movie. I'm sorry.
Now run 20 miles and tell people to go get backup on barefoot.
Yeah,
Run through the
because her job
mountains.
was to march up the mountain with Bond and then go back down to the mountain to warn them, and then climb back up with the mountain with the ninjas. Honestly, it all really doesn't matter with the 2 girls because obviously the best Bond girl in the movie was Tiger Tanaka,
Who's that?
the head of the Japanese SIS.
Oh, okay, yeah, he was actually really cool.
Who had the best chemistry
Yeah.
with Bond.
And honestly, the best line in the movie.
Which one was that?
I love you.
No, I love Tiger. He is probably, in terms of like Bond's one-shot ally contacts that he has on his missions, he is quite possibly my favorite. He has tremendous chemistry with Sean Connery, And whenever they're on the screen at the same time, just being friends, it's a delight. I really love the character.
I got Patrick Star vibes from that every time they use the code word. Just, I love you. He also has one of the best lines in the film, which I think would make an amazing band name, which is "Bad News from Outer Space." Yes. I want that tattooed somewhere.
News from outer space.
And, like, he's the core reason for why Bond is like being even more integrated into this culture, whether it's check out all my ninjas with guns, one of which happens to run towards the camera with a sword, which freaked me out for some reason. I was like, oh God. And then he goes on to, we must make you Japanese. And I'm like,
I knew when that line was coming up, I could feel the communal butt clench.
yeah.
Of we must turn you Japanese, and it's like,
I was like, I'm scared.
but honestly, all things considered, it's not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse.
It's less American World War II cartoon propaganda and more I'm turning Japanese. I really think so.
So you hear that a lot of, this is the Bond film where they turn Sean Connery into a Japanese man, and it's so controversial. And like, you wouldn't be able to get away with that crap nowadays, but it's also not that bad.
He's just conveniently Scottish again.
One of my favorite things about, once again, being in this Japanese culture is the amount of walls you can throw people through, because they're essentially made out of paper.
Walls. Yeah, paper walls are great.
So there's a part where we're watching it, and like Bond runs past the paper walls, and I'm just half expecting the police to jump through the paper walls.
No, but they don't. Like, I remember the part he dolts through the mechanical door as the police come by, and then the police try to get through the door as Bond is running past the paper wall.
Mm-hmm. In addition to the fact that I think out of all my favorite weapons that he's used so far, he assaults someone with a couch in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like a light designer couch. And
Yeah.
it's a really good fight scene overall.
I love that fight scene. That's such a fun fight scene. There are definitely two noteworthy sequences in this movie that need to be talked about in extensive detail. Little Nelly and the volcano.
Oh, Little Nelly, the helicopter.
The gyrocopter, yep.
Yeah.
Whose only purpose was to just look awesome.
And it accomplished that. So Little Nelly was invented by RAF Wing Commander Ken Wallace, who also piloted it for the film. The scene was incredibly difficult to shoot, requiring the little gyrocopter to take off 85 times to get all the shots done right.
Oh, wow.
And pickup shots for the sequence were filmed in Spain because the crew weren't allowed to set off explosions at a national park.
In Japan or somewhere else.
Yeah, because they filmed that gyrocopter sequence, between those mountains and stuff. That was all a national park, and they couldn't do explosions there. So the pickup shots where they actually blew up the enemy helicopters were done in Spain. Thing with Little Nelly is that Little Nelly, bringing that up is a perfect time for me to talk about how cursed the production of this film was. This film was cursed. The plane that was supposed to deliver the key production crew back from Japan to London crashed into Mount Fuji, killing everyone on board.
What?
Yeah. The crew missed their flight completely by happenstance because an opportunity arose to oversee the Ninja Training School film location. So they were supposed to be on that plane. Just by happenstance, they ditched the plane. That plane crashed into Mount Fuji and killed everyone on board.
You hear that stuff with like The Exorcist and The Omen, but I've never heard it in the context of a James Bond film.
Yeah,
That's
creepy,
really
right?
weird, yeah.
One point during filming, a filming light fell and nearly crushed Karen Dorr, the actress who plays Helga Brandt, the blonde-haired assassin woman. It was by sheer luck that she happened to step right out of the way before it fell. Other crazy story, the one actually involving Little Nelly, is during the filming of the Little Nelly sequence, terrible tragedy did occur. Johnny Jordan was one of the world's most renowned aerial cameramen. During filming, he was dangling below a helicopter in a harness in order to film the sequence. An updraft of air sent another helicopter directly below him straight up, and the rotors sliced one of his feet off. The helicopter that Jordan was attached to was also damaged and had to make an emergency landing. The one piloting the helicopter was a former kamikaze pilot.
Oh, wow.
The same pilot who toured Louis Gilbert and Cubby Broccoli around Japan, where they scouted the volcano that they were going to use in the sequence.
There's a word you never hear a lot. Former kamikaze pilot.
Right? The pilot landed the helicopter with no additional injuries. Jordan was immediately flown to a hospital and his life was saved, although try as they might, they could not reattach the foot. And so his entire leg was amputated.
Wow.
After recovering, Jordan went back to work and continued his career as an aerial cameraman for numerous films, including the next James Bond film.
Were they actually able to find his foot?
Apparently, because they did try to reattach it. Apparently, they were able to find the foot.
Wow.
But they couldn't reattach it. They had to chop off the leg.
Just like what must have been 100 feet, like at least 100 feet in the air, chopped off from a helicopter. That's not a precise amputation right there.
You're making this film become less of a favorite of mine, Jake, because it sounds horrifying.
It was.
Because I like, oh man, like that helicopter scene is one of the most fun. Like
It is.
It's there for really no reason other than to show off
Just
all
to be
these
cool.
explosions.
Just to be cool.
And
yeah.
I'm like, oh man,
and
this
the
guy,
cameraman got injured. Yeah.
this literally cost a leg.
Yeah, and but Johnny Jordan, he did survive and he kept filming, doing what he loved.
Yeah, that's good.
While filming the 1970 blockbuster Catch 22, Johnny Jordan did fall out of a plane to his death during filming. So that's the dark history surrounding Little Nelly, one of the coolest gadgets in the franchise.
Yeah, all the little gadgets are cool, although I'm a little skeptical that a helicopter that small with an engine that size would be able to take off with, well, what was that, like, so like two like 16 pod rockets?
Suspend your disbelief, sir.
Okay, well I can, but that's a lot of armaments for a teeny helicopter to take off
Suspend
with.
your...
Rockets, air-to-air missiles,
Yeah.
Full magazines of ammunition,
what looks like-
mines.
He looks like he has
Flamethrower, which requires
freaking
propellant.
flamethrower. Oh yeah, on the rear though. So
On the rear, yeah. She would. I mean, it wouldn't be very smart if you were shooting a flamethrower in front of you while you were flying through the air in a helicopter.
on almost any airborne vehicle, except for the ones that are intended to fly
Why won't
backwards, of
anyone
course.
help me?
I think Q is smarter than that.
Those machine guns, like on a little Nelly thing, those things do not look like they could hold much ammo. And how is he going to aim? There's nothing to aim with.
Suspend your disbelief.
So the other big set piece of the movie was obviously the greatest thing that Ken Adam ever made in the history of ever, the volcano base. Over $1 million went into designing and building Blofeld's volcano lair alone.
So the budget of Dr. No.
Yeah, that set cost as much as the entirety of Dr. No. It was an undertaking the likes of which had never been seen. People at Pinewood Studios would spend their breaks just watching the 148-tall set be built. It was equipped with a fully functioning monorail and a full-scale helipad. The roof and the sliding crater top was added in post. The final climactic battle required 100 stuntmen. One of the stuntmen that were rappelling down the ropes from the ceiling went too fast and broke both of his ankles.
You're just giving me more and more bad news, Jake.
Like honestly, with 100 stuntmen and a 100-foot tall base, honestly, I would expect a little bit more to go wrong. So I guess that's not too bad.
Oh, Jake's not done yet, folks. We haven't even gotten to the monorail accidents.
Thankfully, no monorail accident. The only other real, I was going to say casualty, but that would have been so wrong. The only other real incident, I guess you could say, would be Blofeld's cat.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As you all notice in the movie, during the climax when they're setting off those explosions, which wasn't models, by the way. They were setting off those explosions in the base, and you can see the weight of, all the barrels and stuff go ba-doom.
Oh,
with
that's
that
right. Yeah,
explosions.
those weren't just blank gunshots.
No. And so as you saw in that, one scene with Blofeld and his cat is freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
And there's even one scene, you see the one scene where, Blofeld's holding the gun and his cat is just clinging onto his shirt for dear life. And then you see another shot of the cat just on the ground. And then after that, the cat's just gone. You never see the cat again. It's just gone. Reportedly, it took several days to find the cat.
Oh, wow.
They found it clinging to dear life to one of the support beams on the ceiling of the set.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
So-
no, because during that, when you saw the cat like freaking out, his eyes looked like they were about to pop out. I felt so bad for that
the
cat.
Yeah.
poor freaking cat.
like-
Props to Donald Pleasance for still, acting through that.
Just-
Which, by the way, Blofeld. How do you got? We finally see Blofeld's face. We finally get to meet number one of Spectre. What was that like for you? Actually, after all that build up, finally meeting Blofeld.
Well, after seeing the freaked out cat, I know where his face scar comes from.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
From the previous space robbery.
I didn't expect him to show up this soon in the series, but I was
yeah?
pleasantly surprised because I totally forgot that Donald Pleasance was in this. And I'm like, all right, cool, he's here
Pleasantly
now.
surprised.
Yeah, because they're just casually hiding him behind someone's arm, and then he just like pops his head out like, "Hello."
Hey guys. I did feel like they should have given him like an apple box to stand on because when he's right next to Sean Connery, he's kind of just looking up at him. I'm like, this feels weird.
That's the thing. Like, Blofeld looks weird. There's just always been something really unnatural about Blofeld in this movie, especially, which is the way they had him costumed, and he has like this. He has this weird collaring with his lapelless jacket and the bald head. There's just something really alien about him. Like his eyes always look like they're about ready to pop right out of his head. Nothing against Donald Pleasance. Donald Pleasance is an amazing actor, but I mean, I love mimicking his voice as Blofeld because he also just has this really odd voice with really odd deliveries. He has this very kind of high-pitched, twangy sound, which, when you heard him dub in the previous films, he was very deep and soft-spoken. But here he's up here with these weird inflections. Kill Bond now. Stop that astronaut.
That's so good. That's another awesome band name.
Stop that astronaut. Opening for bad news from outer space. I do feel that this film is Blofeld at his weakest. As he appears later, I feel that the character gives much stronger appearances.
Is it still Donald Pleasance?
It is not.
Damn it!
It is not.
I wanted Dr. Loomis and James Bond. I was like, oh, he gets away in this film, so I get more of Donald Pleasance's creepy acting, but no.
He gets recast, unfortunately.
Oh, immediately after this movie?
I quit.
Oh.
Donald Pleasance wasn't even the actor originally cast as Blofeld. Originally, the part landed to Jan Verick, but when he arrived on set to start recording his lines, the producers hated him. He was too benevolent. He wasn't threatening enough. They described him as a jolly Santa Claus. And so they said, okay, yeah, he's not working out. So they fired him and replaced him with Donald Pleasance.
It's wonderful to meet you, Mr. Bond.
Now sit on my lap. That's the line, right?
Oh,
I mean, that's pretty much where Dr. Evil came from. Isn't
Oh,
it?
100%.
Oh, absolutely.
What I love about You Only Live Twice is you go to people who are not as well versed in James Bond, and when you think about it, a lot of the stereotypical cliches that we attribute to James Bond and spy movies. The secret base hidden in the volcano, a pool of deadly piranhas that you get lowered into.
Yeah.
All of these are cliches that come from this movie and are played straight.
Blofeld's like, my piranha won't hurt me. He's like, but you haven't fed them. You said it yourself.
No, I just hand feed them. Look it.
It's a Game of Thrones reference. No one else knows what I'm talking about.
This one Bond movie is referenced in like two of my favorite TV shows. Like the base invasion from the Scorpio episode of The Simpsons.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and Spider Skull Island from the Venture Brothers. Just like two great sets that these two shows have creatively borrowed from this series that makes James Bond feel like a very I guess good portion of our culture, I guess.
Would you call James Bond a man of the people, someone who's trying to protect the innocent?
I'd say I've had conversations with other people like this about how much of a hero Bond is, how altruistic he truly is. Does what he do for the greater good to legitimately save people, or does he do it just because it's his job? I feel like different eras of the film will lean more heavily in either direction, but in general, generally speaking, I say that yes, Bond is a hero. Yes, he does have a desire to save and protect the innocent.
So why is he shooting Japanese ferrymen who only seem to have hammers and what else were they holding?
Okay, yeah. So, but basically, Bond runs down a flight of stairs and like in the docks, and the guy's chasing him with like a big wooden mixing spoon, and James Bond just turns around and just ices him right in the chest.
Don't bring a spoon to a gunfight.
Well, exactly, but like a spoon, what were you gonna do with that? Why even bother if you just have a spoon?
It's not the bad guy's fault they're stupid.
Or under-equipped, just...
Like, if this were a kung fu movie, you'd see him going hand-to-hand against all these people with different weapons, but James Bond is straight up just shooting all these ferrymen. I'm like, geez,
James Bond
buddy.
is just gonna Indiana Jones all these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you think, Spectre would have the means to better equip their dock guards.
Were they dock guards?
They were working for Osato Chemical.
Like,
Okay,
yeah, like there were some like hired thugs or
Yeah,
like some
but
mafia guys.
They just straight up like Leon S. Kennedy it and just start shooting
Yeah, no,
these people.
they weren't just random people who decided to just try to murder this guy with whatever was
Right,
randomly
yeah.
flying around. They did work for Osato Chemicals.
They just weren't like agents with guns. They were just hired hands.
basically,
Like,
yeah.
here's a spatula.
Like they just see some Scottish guy trying to impersonate
I will
a
kill you
Japanese
with
person.
this Scotch tape.
This can opener. It's very
That'll teach
sharp.
him.
So Chaz had an interesting point when it comes to the space espionage in this film. Is that imagine training your entire life to become an astronaut, only to then be fucking kidnapped on your first day on the job.
Imagine being killed in space on your first day on the job.
Well, that comes with the territory, I think.
Yeah,
but to then have this giant beak opening and swallowing your spaceship,
I
what
can kind
the
of see that. If you're going into space to be an astronaut, I can kind of see that. You kind of are expected, like, okay, yeah, it's space. I could die in space. You don't expect to be kidnapped
Yeah.
in space.
It's so serene and quiet on here.
There's a difference between dying in space because of an issue and being killed.
Murdered in space.
Yeah.
Space murder.
Or to spend all this effort to go out to space using a fucking huge rocket, using tons of fuel to fight the powers of gravity, and then you just immediately get kidnapped and then sent back to Earth before your mission's done.
You only live twice, or so it seems. One life for yourself and one for your dreams. You drift through the years and life seems tame till one dream appears and love is its name.
Things that go quick.
Chaz is taking a chapstick break.
Let's all put on chapstick.
You guys want some of my chapstick? It's minty.
No.
Trust me, Cruz, I tried. Just not the right
Shut up.
places.
Chaz, stop fucking moving!
Incapable.
Please keep that, Willie. Please keep that.
I don't know what just happened.
Room tone is literally not doing anything.
He
Room
needs
tone is
100% silence.
Oh,
And you're just fidgeting with everything.
Despite monster movies dying out in America to make way for the new wave Hollywood renaissance, Japan's box office was still oozing with kaiju delight, with Honda and Tsuburaya continuing their prolific film streak with Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. The most ambitious of their projects that featured Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah, a three-headed dragon from space that would go on to become Godzilla's greatest rival in the film series. For the next 20 years, it would be the last Godzilla film to be heavily re-edited for American audiences, leading Toho to creating an alliance that would ensure that if any future changes were made for international audiences, they would be made in studio. Despite this film looking good on paper and remaining as a fan favorite, the convoluted story has always weighed it down for me, mixing space prophecies with assassination attempts, with hard-hitting journalism, with the Shobijin appearing on TV, and so on. So regardless of my dislike, what did you guys think of the film?
We double billed it with King of the Monsters or just King of Monsters?
Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Godzilla, King
Technically,
of the
we didn't-
Monsters. I definitely enjoyed Godzilla versus what's fuck.
What do you mean you can't keep track of all these very simplistic
You should write
titles?
them down before you come
I
into
was
recording.
stuttering and not forgetting the name. I was just stuttering.
We watched Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Ghidorah the three-headed monster, and then Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Correct.
Okay. So I think I enjoyed Ghidorah the three-headed monster more. I was actually entertained by the various different plots that were going on. I was curious about the Venetian and the guys who were hunting her and how they were going to figure out if they were going to figure out that it is her and that her body's just been overtaken by something.
Space magic.
Even though by the end of it, it pretty much adds up to nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you found more charm with the hokey 60s story versus a melodramatic family story in King of the Monsters, basically.
Definitely.
Oh god,
I can
did
see
too.
that.
I mean, I'm mixed with this one because on all accounts it's a mess. But it's a charming mess.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good way to put it. It was
mean,
definitely a charming mess.
all the crisscrossing plot lines are pretty stupid. Like with the grand majority of these films we've seen, new and old, the best parts of it were the actual monster fights, with just other stuff happening in between. But this had a lot of other stuff. My biggest, I guess, overall gripe with the movie is that it had all of these conflicts, but literally nothing got resolved. Literally, like, okay, because at the end of the movie, the Venusian alien is gone. The princess is being back to normal. And they put her on a plane and ship her back to her home country. No, wait a minute. Wasn't the whole point of bringing her to Japan was to keep her safe from her crazy uncle who is trying to kill her? We've only stopped one assassination plot. We stopped one assassin. He's gonna send more. The princess is still in danger.
I didn't even think of that.
No, we just prolonged an assassination.
We're gonna have an Animal House epilogue where it freeze frames and it just she was soon killed soon after.
She was dead 24 hours later.
She died on her way back to her home planet.
She choked on a peanut.
Her plane mysteriously blew up on her way back home.
And then with the monsters,
Her plane flew into Mount Fuji.
oh no. Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's bad. Ghidorah wasn't soundly defeated. We just chased him back off into space. He's obviously going to come back. And then, as Ghidorah's flying away, there's Godzilla and Rodan just kind of sitting there watching okay, now what's stopping these two from just going back to fighting each other?
Because they're cool now.
All right, so, all right, that's taken care of. So we're going back to kicking each other's asses, right? Let's fucking go.
Well, Ghidorah booking it is very much like the Blofeld of the series. It's like, I'll be back.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the best part of the movie, surprise, surprise, is Mothra.
Mothra as a character is just great, though.
Oh, very much so.
For me, to
Of
some
all the
extent,
monsters, they give her the most lines.
I prefer her in her full form. I think as a
agree.
larva,
Absolutely.
it's
Oh,
just
yeah,
not
no,
as
I mean,
interesting.
can Caterpie hurry up and evolve, please?
Yeah.
But she still plays a bigger role in this movie than most Bond girls. So
Yeah.
Mothra is a great Bond girl. Especially since,
the bikini shots.
Godzilla and Rodan are, fighting, and Mothra comes in and just talk them down. It really much feels like a mother scolding her children.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just a major tail.
Which is
waggle
hilarious because she's just a little larva.
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Now, the conversation she has with him is very much both a highlight and a detriment in the English dub because I was originally considering showing you guys the English dub
Right.
until I started skimming through it again and forgot just how bad it is, and not even in a fun way. It's almost insulting.
Just purely in a bad way.
Yeah, and the conversation that she has with him is both funny, but also just like I love this series, but this is just a tad too much for me.
Wait, so in the English dub, did they still have someone? Did they still have the twins translate for Mothra?
Yeah, but it's not as
Natural?
believable.
It's none of their business if the earth perishes, and Godzilla agrees with him. Now Rodan says he'll just fly away, and Godzilla says they have no reason to try to save mankind. Mothra says the earth belongs to them, and that should have to learn.
What?
Oh, Godzilla, what terrible language!
What?
Godzilla, put a quarter in the swear jar.
Put a quarter in the swear jar.
So I've always felt that one of the worst qualities about Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is the princess, because she spends the whole film just speaking blankly and prophesizing stuff, and for some reason the main characters are so determined to listen to her and go through electroshock therapy to see if she's telling the truth, and it's like, guys, there's monster shit happening, like we don't have time.
No, we gotta go through this psychiatry session to see if this person really is an alien.
I remember thinking this during that movie that how she was speaking so blankly. It kind of bugged me at first, but then I was reminded of how Other M, the baby.
I would gladly take that over Princess whatever in this
No,
movie.
dude, I would say that I think the princess in Ghidorah isn't as bad as Other M. Samus.
I'm not saying that.
Oh,
but,
you were referencing Other M. Samus.
Yeah,
but
I think Other M. Samus is worse.
But
yeah.
like
What I was explaining with Other M to you in that one time is that in Japanese culture, a woman speaking in kind of a very emotionless, stern, steady manner is seen as a indicative of a strong-willed woman.
That's what I'm getting
And
at.
they, however, I don't think that quite applies to the princess, because I don't think they were going for stern, strong, and independent. They were going for more ethereal.
But at least Samus is telling me some semblance
Thing?
of a story in that game versus this where it's like something bad's going to happen. What is?
That
Yeah.
It's funny that you're saying that, like, it's supposed to represent a strong, independent person. Isn't that the game where Samus waits on a commanding officer to tell her that she could use equipment she has?
Shut up, nerds.
Yeah, no. I did get that feeling with the prince, like Rodan is going to escape. No, he's not. Rodan escapes. Surprise Pikachu face.
Surprise Godzilla face.
The fact that she's wearing that sailor's outfit where it's just like a sun hat and like the coat and everything.
Yeah, just some like plain clothes.
She looks like a Japanese Oliver Twist, and I'm like, I can't take you seriously.
No, she did kind of have this like popper thing going on.
Yeah.
It's like, I see it was on purpose. Like, she's kind of dressed as a bum. Like, I see that, but it's like,
It's like, guys, there are giant monsters like a good 50 feet away from you, but you are this desperate to fulfill your assassination missions. Like,
yeah.
Priorities.
That was bugging me the most in that movie. What was the assassin guy was like saying who felt that their mission was more important than getting the fuck out of there.
political assassination stories were really popular at the time.
Well, Bond very much had an influence.
Mainly
on that.
due to James Bond. You mentioned, it had the double bill with the Bond parody, and I mentioned before in previous episodes that once Bond exploded, those Bond parodies and Bond-inspired plots showed up literally everywhere. Everyone was doing spy or political drama or anything like that, even the places where it did not belong. The main thing I remember from the beginning of the movie is rest in peace, frilly collar guy.
This unknown culture that she's a princess of, who all dress like Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is one of the last films that was on my list of Godzilla movies to watch. So I haven't seen it in perpetuity as the rest of them.
Right.
But it really isn't one that I've ever felt the need to come back to.
Oh, I could say.
Which is why I feel like, because my first introduction to King Ghidorah is the next film, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, and to me, that's pretty much just a better version of this movie.
Can't wait to see it.
Yep.
Do they finally reenact Hamlet? Alas, poor Ghidorah.
Last Paul
wait,
Ghidorah,
there's three of
I
them.
knew him, and him, and him.
I forgot during this movie that when Godzilla is, I guess, talking, he looks like he's like me, me, me,
Yeah,
me,
he's
me,
like,
me,
me.
So that's where you get it from.
Yeah, exactly.
Cruz, I think Godzilla's a terrible influence for you, young man.
Rodan talking looks like a Muppet.
Yeah, and it makes me sad because Rodan had his own movie in 1956,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and it's super incredible. It's like a murder mystery and a monster movie all wrapped in one.
Interesting. So he wasn't a monster that was just invented for this movie.
No.
Okay, interesting.
Which is why it's like they very much know who Rodan is.
Right.
The Rodan film is so incredible and the design looks really good, but Rodan has never looked as good as he did in his original film. That is until I think King of the Monsters brought him back in the best way ever. So it's unfortunate that he doesn't look as good as he should, but he does reappear throughout the series. I just wish he looked better.
Because it was always a puppet. Like, they usually use a puppet, right? Unless he's, like, on the ground.
No, it's a suit actor.
Oh, okay. Wow. So
Like I believe Haru Nakajima was also the original Rodan. Because they gave him like you said, like a Muppet face in this versus the original, which is like he has hollow eyes and his beak is a lot sharper.
Oh, wow.
And his color scheme is a lot darker.
wow, that is
yeah.
really
Yeah, it's
good.
a lot more intimidating.
Yeah.
Any reason why they weren't quite able to nail that down?
Suit falls apart. We got to make a new one.
Yeah.
And
That's
since
not
it
good.
was starting to become a little bit more kid friendly, they went with
Oh.
eyes.
And they rounded out the design more, I guess.
Yeah.
So he didn't look like he could just pick you right out of your own apartment building while you're sleeping in the middle of the night, even though you have your nightlight on that you specifically asked your mother to turn on when she left the room.
That was really specific. Are you okay?
Which is one of the things that I feel like Rodan doesn't get enough love, and it's mostly because he hasn't had enough time to shine. But in King of the Monsters, like he comes back by bursting out of the volcano, which was his like original origin, and he flies over Mexico and just houses are flattened.
That was really
because that's
cool
all
looking.
he needs.
That
Yeah,
was really cool.
He almost looks like a really cool interpretation of like one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, like War or something, because like everything he flies over is decimated, and also his wings just emanate flames.
Yeah,
Like he's part
because
fire.
he's like a
That's cool.
flying nuclear bomb.
I've always been a big fan of Moltres.
Yeah,
Huh,
yeah, that's a good point.
He's like a dusted up Moltres.
Yes, the Moltres
And so
fighting a Venomoth.
a radioactive Venomoth.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
You're welcome.
I like the fight scenes in the newer one, which, you know, is something that a lot of movies nowadays tend to get pretty well between giant monsters. But I feel like you can't replace the charm that comes with multiple people working towards the same goal. Like a puppeteer trying to get this 3-headed dragon to fly around convincingly, looking like it's causing the set explosions in front of it. And the guy drawing on the film reel the electricity, and it essentially just looks like
Ghidorah.
Ghidorah just like waving his heads around, and then just everything in front of him explodes from electricity.
That's very much true because I think it's incredible that with the 5th film in this series, we have a kaiju that is one guy in a suit and about 6 guys in the rafters controlling the 2 tails, the 3 heads, and the 2 wings. So the dedication to the craft is very much there, and he was the most like impressive kaiju for the time. But I think King of the Monsters still possesses that creative integrity and dedication because Ghidorah is mocapped by 3 actors who are like doing all the facial expressions and moving together. Godzilla had his own suitmation actor. I think Rodan did, but I'm not completely sure. So there's very much life in their actions as well.
Yeah, they did feel like they moved expressively, which is pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I lost it.
Again? Okay.
Yeah.
So
was there any relation to
Glad
Naked
to have
Gun?
you.
Any relation to Naked Gun as far as you know?
God damn it! I hate
So,
myself.
so in the last episode, I talked about how Godzilla, how the series embodies the three S's.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had science, Mothra introduced us to spiritualism, and now finally with Ghidorah we have space, and it's these three S's that will continue throughout the series.
And it's interesting because, those are three aspects that should be in conflict with each other. Okay, are we doing grounded science? Are we doing fantasy? Or are we doing science fiction? But here we have a series that effortlessly integrates all three without making it feel too forced.
And I feel like King of the Monsters does that as well, because Michael Dougherty did everything in his power to make this like an amazing tribute and dedication to the Showa series. King Ghidorah in that film legitimately comes from space, and they keep that in there, and they keep so many more Easter eggs and lore.
I'm glad
in it.
they kept that in there, because watching the new film, I was wondering, like, okay, are they going to keep Ghidorah as an alien, or is that going to be too hokey? And then they just say, oh no, he's from space, he's an alien. I'm like, all right, well,
Yeah.
cool, awesome.
And the reason why he isn't meshing well with the rest of these monsters is because he's not part of our
He's
world.
not part of the natural order. It made sense within the plot of the film, as non-existent as it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
How could oh wait, you mean the new one, right?
The
Yeah.
new one,
How
yeah.
could, how could people be talking so much and there's no plot?
Well, I mean, the plot is pretty simple as you can get it. I mean, I love, because one of the notes that Michael Dougherty makes is that we don't really have any more films nowadays that just focuses on the spectacle of lost civilizations. There are no moments where people will just enter somewhere that has never been touched before, which he kind of did with Atlantis in this film, and just be surrounded by it. And that's something that he wanted to focus on.
Oh yeah, that's kind of something we got to have in the next film too, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. And yet that's interrupted by so much family drama that I just, please go away. I don't need this. There are monsters here.
That was my biggest gripe with the new one. It was just
It had humans. The movie got progressively better as it went along, but, for the first great chunk of it, I was bored.
During one of the human scenes where they start really getting into like the human dialogue, I just fade out for like almost like probably around 10 minutes, and I just kind of wake up again with the monsters and was like, oh, yay.
No, there's monsters on screen.
Yeah, it's like you said you fell asleep, and I was like, it's not bad. It's not a bad movie.
Not during the monster parts, no.
Yeah,
not
but
bad.
it does speak volumes, though, on just how uninteresting the human characters are, unfortunately.
It's just, if you've seen a family drama before, or if you, God forbid, have a family, it's just stuff you might have heard before.
I was really interesting once it got into the perspective of the mother essentially being a secondary villain in the film. I'm like, oh, cool. That's interesting. That's okay. She has her own agenda. She's working with the bad guys, and
Yeah, and she has-
that's really interesting. And it would have been so cool had the character had a personality. Because goddamn, she was flat.
Like, they have this whole thing about her having regret, and it's just like,
I like Madison well enough.
yeah.
Except for the part where she was able to take the most important object in the villain's base and just leave.
Bye.
That was just that was the one point in the film I just went like, are you fucking kidding me? They all walk out of the room. She just picks up the orca and just walks out. Like, really?
And then fast travels to the
And
Boston
then
Stadium.
travels to the Boston Stadium.
And then is walking down the evacuation line in the Boston Stadium, and then just sidetracks into a broadcast.
Well, I mean, they
booth.
can't keep track of every survivor that's there, so I don't care about that. But
It's
you know.
walking out of the villain's lair is
Yeah.
definitely the most egregious.
Yeah, I agree.
also the evacuation site is like kind of like a festival line that with like some tents on the side, just going to one helicopter. It's like this place doesn't really look like a very busy evacuation.
Well, they're trying to get out of the city. That's the problem.
Yeah, I would
Sorry,
have figured there'd be like more flooding of people or something like that.
Sorry, Boston, you're doomed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's one
Boston
thing-
gets fucked.
That's one thing that I love about this particular series is that the cities that they decimate in here are like gone.
Yep.
They're just screwed. like Washington, D.C., you see the entire
Flood.
ocean flooding it,
Yeah.
and the sky is burning, and I'm like, this is the most
I mean, honestly,
beautiful thing.
Partially because Ghidorah and Rodan are just so immensely destructive. And also they had
Super
Mothra
cool.
eating all the linens.
Which I love the fact that they found just an incredible way of maintaining her beauty and her benevolence while also not going too extreme. They
Yeah.
found like an amazing way of portraying her.
Yeah.
They portrayed her really well. If anything, I wanted to see more of Mothra in the new one. I feel like she wasn't given enough to do.
I agree.
Like I was bummed out when they showed that her wings were burnt up, while they're like very charred up, and I was like, no, you can fly around just a little more. Come on, you can do it.
I can't help but tear up whenever she sacrifices herself because it's just like, and they even have the Toho sound effects of her voice, and it's like, oh, thank you guys, thank you for respecting the property that you have acquired.
I mean, that's what I will say about the new film is that even if some of the technical aspects of it didn't necessarily land, I sensed the respect that the creators had for the original run of the series. Especially with all the little callbacks and Easter eggs they planted here and there. I felt like, okay, yeah, this is being made by people who care about the property and not people who are just after a cash grab.
Yeah, not people who are just trying to piggyback off of a well-known name, 98 Godzilla.
And it may
Zilla.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that's right.
and it makes me sad
He's
that
not
like
Godzilla, he's Zilla.
like someone as cool and as nerdy as Michael Dougherty, who went from Trick or Treat to Krampus to King of the Monsters, only to have this film get a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, oh, come on, man.
The people scenes aren't quite that bad.
Like, it drives me insane that something as just disappointing and you can barely see anything and there's barely any kaiju action in the 2014 version gets a higher score because, because I feel like critics just want a tad bit of that, but they don't want this.
Critics don't know what they want.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like King of the Monsters is, like I said, it is everything I had in the Showa series, but with brand new technology, bringing these monsters to life and giving them character. But people who don't understand where it's coming from are not going to get it. So the only kaiju that they can get is shrouded in darkness and clouds and keeps cutting away, which is all of 2014.
I was actually kind of getting worried that this movie was going to be too dark, but then I saw that the movie, it basically has tons of shrouds of darkness so that you could, so it can essentially kind of emphasize, like you could see through the darkness all of these like glowing characters, and it helps accentuate how badass they look, and just in a different way that Godzilla versus King Kong did it. Even if I do like the clarity of Godzilla versus King Kong, I think the way they did it in this movie was also pretty a good way to go. Just maybe not the one I would prefer.
Because it's very dramatic in the way that they do shoot it. Like, yeah, it's not in broad daylight, but it does look incredible because of your use of color and the way that you're shooting it. Versus 2014, which is we're not going to film the monsters and we're going to hide everything in darkness and we are going to mute the color.
You get red smoke and military guy.
Yes, that's it.
I mean, it's
What more could a
Red
girl want?
smoke.
I don't know if the timelines add up or not because I'm not that privy, but is it possible that 2014 was still kind of riding on the high of Cloverfield?
No, Cloverfield is 2008. 2014 was writing on Gareth Edwards' Monsters, which was a very independent, low-budget film that he made,
Oh, that's right.
where this is going to go on and on. But anyway,
Give us a bridge.
for your guys' context, aliens land in Mexico, right? And they turn into these giant monsters. Mexicans are trying to get out of Mexico and come to America because it's not safe anymore. And, of course, America is saying no.
Yeah, because that's not subtle.
Right. And then at the end of the film, when we finally get the budget shot of these two giant monsters, which look like two giant octopuses, they're not destroying anything. They're touching each other and hugging. And you realize that, oh, we are the monsters because we've been trying our hardest to keep these monsters away and kill them when they actually just want to live and survive and have a family, right? that is what the Mutos do in 2014. And Godzilla is like barely a footnote in that film. It's not about him. It's about Gareth Edwards' Mutos. But we can't sell a film called Mutos. We can sell Godzilla.
From the legendary films that you've shown us so far, I would say that I still enjoyed King Kong versus more. I do feel
Yeah, I
like
think it's the best one.
Yeah, that's...
Old or new?
I'm talking the legendary films. That means new.
The production studio.
Because that's the funny thing, like, Godzilla is just such a fucking dark, uninteresting bore. Cut to Vietnam-era Kong Skull Island, which, you know, isn't, I think, the best out of the series, but is a lot better than 2014, and there's a lot more fun to be had with it, and there's a fuck ton more color. And it just got better as the films went on.
Yeah,
and it's weird going from Gareth Edwards' obscured vision to this bombastic neon wonderland by the end of the series. Because that's what we should have done. Another great thing that King of the Monsters does is that, and it's probably difficult for you guys because you have no context for Sally Hawkins in the first Godzilla film.
And we're watching them backwards.
Yeah, which is an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
Oh, from the first film. Okay,
Yeah.
from the new movie.
The first legendary.
So Serizawa and Sally Hawkins' character were very much like buddy-buddy with what they were doing, only for her to get killed off and eaten by Ghidorah in this film, which I actually loved because I really hate Sally Hawkins in this movie.
But she was the one who had the orca the whole time, right?
No. See, it's hard to remember, isn't it?
Yeah,
She's the British woman who
Yeah.
felt the need to explain everything. Like, you have this amazing shot of Godzilla in the ocean, and his fins are glowing, and he's just staring at all the people in the facility. Just let this scene play out. Don't say anything.
No, we're going to say everything.
And they go, well, why is he doing that? And she goes, oh, it's like he's beating his chest like a gorilla. I'm like, stop explaining.
She was the black-haired woman, wasn't she?
Yeah. And what drives me insane is that even from the first film, where she feels like she's just sleepwalking through it, there's an interview that I put in my video essay where she's being interviewed about the movie, and all she can say is, Godzilla doesn't know how to express himself besides eating people, I suppose. I don't know. And I'm like, why are you in this film? Like, she's an amazing actress, and she did a great job in The Shape of Water. I don't understand why you're not taking the Godzilla series seriously.
She couldn't fuck the monster.
Shut up.
The joke wrote
I hate how
itself.
people bring that shit up every fucking time.
I like.
But that's besides the point. If you blink and you miss it, she gets eaten by Ghidorah.
I remember it.
Yep.
Yep. It took me a second to realize who got eaten.
Right?
But
No, it was a very fast pace. I mean, eventually, it was kind of one of those things where I realized she was the one got eaten. You know, afterwards, you can do a head count.
Yeah.
Like who's missing? Okay, it was her.
Who's missing? The Oscar Award nominee, Sally Hawkins.
I realized who it was that was missing when it panned to Serizawa's reaction.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people over there. Like, it could have been anyone.
Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of particle effects and dust flying around at that point in the movie, so I was just like,
You know,
I
and
missed
the
it.
movie had a bunch of nameless, just military
Nameless soldier
whatevers
characters.
that had a line here and there that I think they were trying to have personalities, but we already don't care about the people we're supposed to care about. Why are we going to care about you?
And you're a soldier in a movie. You're what are you going to get to do with your personality? I'm sorry to say.
Well, to one of the soldiers' credit, who was played by O'Shea Jackson Jr., who's Ice Cube's son, he actually turned out to be like a huge Godzilla nerd. Because I'm listening to the commentary, and he's like name-dropping Biollante and a bunch of other Godzilla
that's
movies.
cool.
I'm like, this guy wanted to be in this,
Okay,
and I'm
respect
happy he
there.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And he's making jokes the whole time, like Ghidorah bursts out of the ice, and he's like, what year is it?
Ice-T, you win Good Parent Award.
Ice Cube.
Oh, God damn it.
You uncultured swine.
But I've watched so much Law and Order, question mark?
So besides Ghidorah being one of the more popular Godzilla villains, he's also been bequeathed with several other titles that just adds to his mythological presence. So Ghidorah's name comes from the Russian translation for Hydra, which also relates to his connection to the eight-headed dragon Orochi from Japanese mythology. His other infamous titles include Monster Zero, the Devil with Three Heads, the One Who Is Many, and my personal favorite from the anime trilogy, the Golden Death.
Oh, that's cool.
It's super, super good. And I also like the added addition of like the One Who Is Many, also connecting to there are 7 guys controlling this thing.
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah, that's fun. That is fun.
I like that.
Also the fact that in the new movie we do see him regenerate a head, like in
Which
less than a
was
minute.
That was cool.
fucking mind-blowing when I saw it, because I'm like, wow, they really did that quickly. Like, that's a big surprise. How are they going to... Oh my god, he's a Hydra.
I almost thought the effect was a little hokey at first, but then like they show one of the Ghidorah heads ripping off like
The foreskin.
yeah, it's like he rips off some amniotic fluid and then the head's like just finishes regenerating back. It's like, oh, that actually was really cool.
And then he's on top of the mountain and he spreads his wings and there's the cross in the foreground and it's like, oh my god, he's the devil. King of the Monsters is also, to my knowledge, the only Godzilla movie in the entire series that someone physically touches Godzilla with their bare skin, which I thought was a very beautiful, incredible moment. I don't like the cliche of the most important character killing themselves off, who has the most expertise in research, but...
I must sacrifice myself.
Yeah, there's no time. It does work with his character because it's kind of coming full circle where he's saving this creature that he has studied his entire life. So it is very poetic, and I like the fact that he speaks to him in Japanese in his final moments. So now we move on to alternate titles, which, much like the original title, all felt the need to omit Godzilla's name from them for some reason. The official Japanese translated title is Three Giant Monsters, The Greatest Battle on Earth.
I mean, that's not wrong.
I mean,
It is wrong because there's 4 monsters in the movie.
That's true.
it is eerily descriptive.
From this, we have Ghidorah, the three-headed monster from America, or Ghidorah, depending on who you ask. The original international title was Monster of Monsters Ghidorah. Japanese re-release title was Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, The Greatest Battle on Earth. From Spain and Mexico, we have Ghidorah, Monster of Three Heads. From Argentina, we have Ghidorah, the Monster of Three Heads. From Turkey, we have Ghidorah, Monster of Monsters. And my personal favorite from Brazil, Ghidorah, the Tricephalic Monster.
Tricephalic?
Tricephalic.
I totally clipped the mic on that one. I'm sorry.
So, Jake, would you recommend... Why do I keep forgetting the title? So, Jake, would you recommend You Only Live Twice and Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, to a first-time viewer?
You Only Live Twice. It isn't bad for a first-time film. Yeah, so if you want to start with that one because you have an interest in Japan or just looks cool, whatever, yeah, it's a great place to start. However, I will say, if you do want to go through the Connery films that have to do with Spectre and allow that build-up for Blofeld to occur naturally, you will get some satisfaction out of it with the reveal of Blofeld. I think it's a really cool way to watch the film series that way. However, if you don't care so much about that, you just want a really good James Bond movie, yeah, go for it. Ghidorah, I'm going to say skip. You know, as iconic as Ghidorah is historically, I know he has far better appearances down the line, and this movie just kind of felt like fluff. I would say give it a skip.
I agree with Jake on every point that he made about You Only Live Twice. Exactly what he said. If you care about Blofeld, watch the other ones first. If you don't, this is definitely a good starting point for just Bond in general. If you're in the mood for something a little bit lighthearted, Ghidorah might be up your alley, but it's not a representation of Godzilla as a series.
Sorry, what was the Bond movie's name?
You only live twice.
Okay, You Only Live Twice.
Only live thrice.
From now on, we're gonna have placards just
Yeah.
right here with both movie names written on
We
it.
should just bring the DVDs.
I've got we've
with
got
us
a
and set 'em
whiteboard.
up.
You
Don't
only
tell
di-
Chaz that.
You only die twice. No, but yeah, you only live twice was pretty good. Definitely one of the more spectacular Bond films that I think we've seen so far. Maybe not too much emotional involvement, so maybe let's save that for another movie. Let's see what else.
I don't know. I was pretty emotional over Aki's death. That kind of pissed me off.
Yeah, like that was it. But Bond.
That was
Bond-
you being mad at the filmmaker for such a wasted potential.
Which I don't blame you. Bond just moves on like a cold operator. It's like I guess that's who he's supposed to be, but damn, how could he just do that like that? I'm writing an op-ed, but still a great movie overall, and you can make a music video of him turning Japanese however much you want, or
A music video?
Right now, I'm gonna be tempted to do that.
just with cuts from the movie, yeah. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, definitely one of the weaker Godzilla movies so far. It has some impressive puppetry considering how many puppets are in it. If you want to make a Godzilla abridged, this would probably be one of the best ones to do it with.
I very much share Jacob's sentiment. I think James Bond and the Chamber of Secrets is a good starting point for anyone who wants to get into the series. More specifically, I think if you love Japan and you love James Bond, I would say go straight into this one because I think it encompasses so much of that kind of time period and how certain film cultures were tapping into that. I would not recommend Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I say go straight into the next film if you want to get a good taste of King Ghidorah.
Next time on James Bond, we'll have a few laughs as we watch the unofficial parody adaptation of Casino Royale, starring James Bond, James Bond, James Bond, James Bond, James Bond, James Bond, and James Bond.
And next for Godzilla, we'll be tackling the space exploration sequel that is pretty much just a better version of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, or as I prefer to call it, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. Thank you all for listening to Bond vs. Godzilla. We'll see you next time with a martini in one hand and a rubber suit in the other.
Stay tuned and stay watching.
James Braun is having strong.
Call the Bondulance.
Quick, call Bond on the Bond phone. Bond.